So there's about a 50-50 spread with people who come to me to work with me. And 50% of the people are like, I like what I'm doing. I like my industry. I like my job. I'm happy with my family. But like, I know what I'm doing isn't sustainable. Like, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm cranky. I'm irritable. Haven't laughed or felt joy in a long time. Like, I don't want to change my situation, but I know something needs to change within me. And then I have another 50% of clients that come to me that are like, I need to leave my job. I need to switch industries. I want to take a year off. Like, they're just ready for this big change. Okay. And one of the things I always say is, if this is this decision you're looking to make, we want to make sure that we're making it from an empowered space, not from a desperate space. And you guys have maybe heard me talk about this a little bit before on the podcast, but I really wanted to dive into what that means today and this topic of self trust. Because you know what I commonly see with the people that I work with, and what was once me for a long time, is that high performers, executives are really good at being confident in the boardroom. They're confident with making decisions at work and making things happen, and not dwelling too much on what may or may not happen, and just confident on, like, let's just try it and make it work type thing. But when it comes to their personal life, they typically question themselves a little bit more and question their judgment. And and sometimes that also means, like, they just don't socialize or interact personally at all because it feels that much more difficult. And one thing that we've been taught, again, especially the high performer group, is that we've been taught to perform versus connect. Like, it is much easier for us to just show up and make things happen and serve people, or whatever the case is, just like fulfill a role, versus true connection, because true connection involves vulnerability. True connection requires authenticity and letting your walls down and taking the mask off and letting people see you for who you really are. And that's hard. Or somehow we've gotten to the place where it's hard for people. um and so I wanted to talk about this element of self trust today, because whether you're someone who feels like you need to make a big decision in your life, or maybe you've just lost some confidence in your decision making, like you find yourself having to consult more people to get the answers, or you are constantly spinning around making the right or wrong or choosing the right or wrong answer. Like, it's a constant rumination. And, like, I'm not talking about like a few days or maybe even a few weeks. I'm talking about like going on months about like something taking up your mental capacity. Um, or you're just someone who like, you're always looking, whether it be through other people or signs, to from the universe maybe, or books or whatever, just something to give you more insight on how to make the decision. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what I want to say. But that pattern and that behavior is a reflection of where your level of self-trust is currently, and also a level of your dysregulation. When you're finding it harder to make decisions, or to come to answers, or even just be okay with the decision regardless of what happens, when you're super attached to the outcome, that is a sign that you are dysregulated and you are in survival mode, meaning your nervous system needs some support. Okay. So let's talk about what that is today, and how we can get back on the path of trusting ourselves more. Okay. Because, you know, I work with some really incredible people. And surprisingly, one thing that consistently comes up when we talk about their goals is wanting to feel more confident. And they don't usually realize it till we break it down. Because on week one, I give them this exercise of like, hey, I have 8 different categories of goals that we go through. And we go through, what is the physical manifestation of that? Okay. So, like, for instance, one of the areas is physical health. So, that might be, I want to lose 10 pounds, or I want a six pack, or I just want to be able to get up and have energy throughout my entire day with no slump. So that would be the physical manifestation of their physical health goal. But then the other side of that is, well, how would that make you feel? What is the desired state that's attached to that? And for that specific category, it's always confidence. They want to feel more confident in their body. They want to feel more confident in themselves and the clothes they wear. And it's not just the physical category that confidence comes up in. It comes up in so many other places. But until they sit down and really dissect the fact that that confidence is continuously coming up, do they realize that it's actually an issue? And obviously, confidence gets directly correlated with self-trust, because if you trust yourself, if you trust how you look, if you trust how you talk, if you trust how you're showing up, if you trust your decision, if you trust what you're voicing, well, you typically only trust that based in confidence, right? And so if we talk about trust, the easiest way to do that is to talk about it in relationship, right? I'm realizing that, and this was me at one time too, that a lot of people have a hard time grasping this concept of relationship with self. And I get it, because we're in our bodies and our minds all day long. So it's kind of like, well, how do you have a relationship with the very thing that you are? Where if we think about like a relationship with a coworker or a spouse or a kid or a friend, it's much easier to conceptualize that interaction and the trust between the two, because you have something else that you're interacting with. There's a feedback system, right? Where there actually is a feedback system within ourselves too, but we're just usually ignoring it. Okay. So how do we get feedback from ourselves? Well, that shows up in how our body is responding. Our weight, if we are breaking out in our skin, if we're having digestion issues, if we're having more severe things like chronic illness, heart attacks, anything like that, those are all feedbacks from ourself. More subtle behaviors like being more irritable or short fused, overthinking a lot, being more critical or cynical. Feedback also in how we are soothing ourselves: alcohol, weed, scrolling, even again, going back to like having to consult multiple people or gossiping, even. These are all feedback systems. Okay. But the thing is, we weren't taught how to navigate the relationship with ourselves. We weren't taught to pay attention to these things. So therefore, when they happen, we just think that's how we are. This is just the way life is, or this is just how I am. This is I'm wired to overthink. I'm wired to always worry. I'm wired to have a tight chest and anxiety. Like that's just the way I am, right? Have you ever said that to yourself before? Because I know I have. Okay. But those are all byproducts of the relationship with ourselves, which is learned behavior. Okay. Learned behavior based on our environment, our family, the interactions we've had growing up. Okay. And again, when we aren't taught to connect to other humans, let alone to ourselves, this is where we get into trouble. Okay. And this is where burnout comes into play. This is where we start to question ourselves more. This is where we start to lose our confidence. And you can go through ebbs and flows of this. You could be in a season where you're like, Minh-Thu, I am so confident in myself right now. I got it. Like, I'm just feeling really good about myself. And yeah, I'm not dealing with any of that. Um, Maybe you have been dealing with a lack of confidence for many, many years. I'm going to be honest, I see with a lot of high performers this false sense of confidence where we wear these masks. Like I just commented on this on a post today on LinkedIn, and like I was the biggest fraud of feeling confident, okay? And I was damn good at my job. I was a professional dancer. I did well, and like I've pretty much quote unquote succeeded at anything I've ever put my mind to. Okay. However, that overperformance, that high performance was a cover up for the lack of confidence I actually felt in Mintu, the person, the being, without all the accolades, without the big paycheck, without all the accomplishments. Those accomplishments were just trying to keep people focused on that so they wouldn't have to actually look at me and who I was as a person, because there was deep down an insecurity. There was deep down a lack of self-worth. And so I would, I had super long nails for a long time, like Cardi B nails. And I know that seems like very subtle, but to me, it was almost like it was part of my armor. It was a bit intimidating. They had a life of their own. I had these long nails. I would be dressed to the nines all the time. I'd be showing skin more than I ever needed to. I had a new car every year. That was a perk of the job. But like, I liked all the flashy things. Like, and I had this persona of like, don't mess with me. Like come correct or don't come at all type thing. And that was professionally and personally. Like in the office, which it kind of worked in some ways because people knew that what they were getting with me, and it's like they knew I would deliver. But coming to me maybe was like, you better come ready for Min to deliver on something. And if you don't have all your ducks in a row, she's gonna let you know type thing. And then personally, dating for sure, like super headstrong and masculine in my dating encounters. And even with my friends, I probably have never said this out loud, while I've always had genuine deep friendships, like I never it took me a long time to really let them into what my deepest, darkest fears were. And for me, it was always just a lack of self-love and being mistreated by the people I was choosing to date, and the deep insecurity of abandonment. I probably didn't start talking about that with my close girlfriends till the last few years. And if I look back on it, it was just because I was trying to look like I always had it together, right? Now, the vicious cycle of that, though, or the downside of that, is when you create this wall or you put this armor on to look a certain way, you start buying your own bullshit. Like I was the queen of buying my own crap because I had put up this mask, and it's like, you can't tell me I'm insecure. Like people have asked me, like, if you were to go back and tell your 20-year-old self something, what would it be? And honestly, it would have been to love yourself more. That's hands down what I would have went and said back to what I would have said to my 20-year-old self. But you know what she would have said? She'd have been like, I do. What are you talking about? Like she would have heard none of it. I already know, because I was so delusional about my confidence because I was doing all these things to pretend that I had it. Okay. And so as I started to unravel that these last few years, because it was showing up in ways that I couldn't run from it anymore, right? Showing up in relationships, showing up in, when I left my last career to build this. Like if you've ever been an entrepreneur, you're starting something on your own. It is it is a journey where you cannot hide from yourself. All your vulnerabilities get exposed, everything comes out, and it's for the best, because if it's coming to the surface, it means it wants to be dealt with. So it's only going to make you a better person. But, I had to start facing these things and dealing with these things. And what I realized along the way was that I didn't trust myself. And the reason I didn't trust myself genuinely, wholeheartedly, was because I wasn't showing up for myself the way I needed to. And I was often betraying myself in the form of putting everyone else's needs before my own. And I pause there because I'm assuming many of you can relate to that. I would put the needs of my relationships before mine, to the point where I'd even lie to myself about what I actually wanted out of the relationship wasn't meeting any of my needs. And I'd pretty much pretend that it was, just because I wasn't loving myself. So I wanted someone else to love me. With my friends, like, again, genuinely great, amazing friends, still have pretty much all of them to this day. Like I've had friends for the past 20 years that were still, strong, but not letting them in fully on my biggest fears and the things that made me cry at night. Um, and then at work, again, like putting work before my own needs, like losing sleep over a job, staying extra hours when I really needed a break, not eating, working through my lunch, just constantly sacrificing my needs for everybody else. And not because anyone was asking me or forcing me to. Like, did my job have some high demands? Yeah. But like I tell this story often, there's a lot of times where I stayed late and my boss would be like, why are you still here? Like someone else can take care of this. Like, I don't know why you're still here. In relationship, it's not like the guys were ever like, hey, you need to do this for me. I would just like, I can handle it. I'm going to do it. So I'll just abandon everything that I genuinely want and just pretend to show up for you. Like no one was ever holding a gun to my head to do these things, but this was my survival mode. This is what I learned from a child of how I can show up and earn my keep, improve my worth, is by just ignoring my needs and showing up for everybody else. So that's what I did. But in that process, you will lose confidence in yourself. You will become very disconnected from yourself. And that's the root cause of losing confidence is you become so disconnected from yourself that you don't even know how to show up for yourself to earn that trust, right? To prove that trust. Because if you think about a genuine relationship, if I just started dating someone new, you have to build trust in the relationship, right? And you do that by showing up consistently, right? So I did an episode on this, geez, probably almost a year ago. So it's about time for us to do it again. But I take my clients through a questionnaire that helps them realize where their current relationship is at with themselves. Okay. So I'm going to take you through that questionnaire today. There's 10 questions. Okay. And each one of these is going to be very reflective on where your relationship is with yourself currently. And if you are struggling to be confident in yourself, whether that be personally or professionally or both, this is going to highlight some of those areas and then also what we can do to support it. Okay. So if you want, you can go grab a pen and paper right now to jot down your answers because we're going to go through them. And then I'm going to take you back full circle to help you make sense of what your answers are. Okay. So what I will say is as I go through these questions, don't overthink it. Go with your first response. Okay. I will help elaborate on some of the questions if you're not sure, but just go with your gut reaction, no judgment. Okay. Question number 1. How often do you spend time with yourself in a week? Now, I want a number answer for this, whether it be minutes or hours per week. And this is alone time. This is no distractions, no kids, no spouse, no podcast, no music, no TV, no phone, just you and yourself in stillness. And for the sake of the exercise, driving doesn't count or being in the shower. Okay. I know you probably spend time alone with yourself in stillness in those instances, but the reason I don't count them for the sake of this exercise is because those are things you have to do regardless, and you were going to do regardless. You typically don't do them with the intention of like, I'm going to go spend time with myself on this drive. It's a byproduct of the fact that, oh, I got to drive half an hour home, so I get some alone time. Okay. So I want an actual number, how many minutes or hours you spend with yourself in a week. For some of you, that might be 0. For some of you, that might be an hour. For some of you, that might be 10 minutes. Whatever it is, write it down. Number 2, do you check in with yourself? Ask yourself how you are, or do you need anything? So when you go through your day, when you go through your week, do you ever stop and say, hey, Minh-Thu, what's going on? How are you actually feeling? Do you need some water? Do you need a break? Do you check in with yourself? Simple yes or no, or sometimes is fine. These can be like partial answers, like 50% of the time, or yeah, sometimes, or occasionally. You can answer it that way too. That's okay. Number 3, what is the tone of the voice in your head? So when you are having some self-talk, is it judgmental? Is it very much, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, like bossy? Is it compassionate? Is it kind? Is it highly critical? How did you let this happen? This should have been better. You could have done this better. What is the genuine voice that's inside of your head? And you might have some fluctuations, but there's typically a very consistent tone. Number 4, do you feel comfortable being with just you? Now, this is going to correlate with number 1, because again, comfortable being with just you means, do you feel comfortable in stillness by yourself with no distractions, no phone, no kids, no friends, just you? So number 1 is going to probably be pretty reflective of what the answer for number 4 is. And some of you might say, yeah, I love being alone. I just never make time for it. Okay, cool. But then I would say, like, if you love being alone but you never make time for it, we all have time to put our phone down for 20 minutes. I would beg you to double back on that and see if that's actually the real case then. Number 5, do you make plans with yourself or others that you stick to? So let's do a 5A and a 5B. 5A, do you make plans with others that you stick to? So when you agree to a coffee date or a dinner date or yoga in the park, do you stick to it with your friends? And 5B is when you make plans for yourself, do you stick to them? So when you say, I'm going to go to the gym, you go to the gym. When you say, I'm going to get up early for that meditation circle, you go for it. When you say, oh, I'm actually going to take time to read before bed tonight, you actually honor it. So 5A, do you keep plans that do you stick to your plans with other people? 5B, do you stick to your plans with yourself? Number 6, do you honor commitments to yourself? Now, this is slightly different than the last one because it can be a form of when I say I'm going to go do something, I'm going to do it. But it's also something as simple as I said I was not going to take on any extra work at work. So I said no to the project. It could be I told myself I'm not going to answer emails now past 7 o'clock. So I stopped. Like when you say you're going to do things like that, beyond like showing up, just like commitments to yourself. I told myself that I'm not going to scroll past 9:30 anymore. Do you honor those commitments to yourself? Number 7, do you ever lie to yourself? Now, this doesn't have to be some big theatrical, like, oh, I love the color blue when you hate it. This is something as simple as like you telling yourself fine when you're not, or you telling yourself you can handle it when you know you're already like gassed. Do you ever lie to yourself? 8, do you feel comfortable in your own skin? Now, this is slightly different from the question earlier of being comfortable with just you, because comfortable in your own skin means you feel safe being on display. You feel safe letting people see every side of you, the good, the bad, the ugly, the vulnerable, the crying, the angry, when you get mad in traffic and you're losing your shit. Like, do you feel comfortable letting people see you in your full capacity and your full vulnerability? 9, do you have faith in yourself? I think that's pretty straightforward. And 10, do you trust yourself? Now, if you need to pause here or go back to any of those answers, go ahead and do that. But now what we're going to do is we're going to do a fun little exercise. So I said earlier, when you are looking to generate trust in a relationship, it takes time and it takes behavior to earn someone's trust, right? So while self trust might be a harder concept to understand, creating trust in a brand new relationship is a lot more familiar for most of us. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take those answers that you just gave me for all those questions and we're going to pretend you're in a brand new relationship, okay? Even if you're married, just hypothetically we're going to play the game, okay? So you're in a brand new relationship, you just started dating, it's been like 3 weeks, you really like the person, okay? Now we're going to use these answers towards that relationship and we're going to see if this relationship's going to last or if it's going to crater, okay? So, number 1, how often do you spend time with yourself? Well, some of you, if it was 0 minutes per week, that means you spend 0 time with your new boyfriend or girlfriend. For some of you, it might have been an hour a week. That means you spend 1 hour with your boyfriend or girlfriend. So just apply that. Number 2, do you check in with yourself? So do you ever ask them how they are? Well, if it was a no, that means you never ask your new partner if they're good or how their day was. If it's part of the time, that means every once in a while you'll check in with them. But, again, apply that answer to that. Number 3, what is the tone of the voice that you speak to your partner with? So if it's judgmental, that means you're judging them. If it's critical, that means you're highly critical of them, right? So just go down the line, okay? And then apply it to that person. Do you ever lie to them? If you said, yes, I lie to myself about saying I'm okay when I'm not, that means you lie to your new partner, right? So go down the line and apply those answers to that hypothetical new partner. And then ask yourself, would I date me? Is this a relationship that's being set up to win? Is this a relationship that's being set up to go the distance and to last long term and to have self trust? Will this person trust me? Right. And I'm not going to project, but I've done this exercise strategically for a long time now. And 90% of the time, I would say 98% of the time, those relationships are red flags with my clients. Okay. Now, I obviously know people are coming to me with a certain problem in hand, but if you're listening to this, there's probably a little bit in there with you as well, too. But 9 times out of 10, that relationship needs a lot of work because you wouldn't date you with the way you treat yourself. Right. So if we're going back to how do we generate more confidence within ourselves from a deep embodiment, not a fake confidence like I had, where I'm just pretending and have the mask up and wearing all this armor and pretending I've got it like that, like a genuine confidence where you can show up with no makeup and you're still just as confident, where you can send an email with a bunch of spelling mistakes and know it doesn't affect your self-worth, where you might not have a great month, and while there's room to improve, you're not beating yourself on it up on it. You look, I'll just get it next time. Like, can you have that type of confidence? Can you have the type of confidence where you let people see you cry? Where you let people hear about your deepest, darkest wounds and how you're scared to be abandoned, or you're scared to get too close to people, or whatever the case is, right? If you want to build that up within yourself where you can truly be confident, this is where you have to start. Okay. You start simple. Can we increase that 15 minutes a week to maybe, 10 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day with yourself? I know you got it. Can we start checking in with ourselves, asking, hey, Mintu, how are you? Do you need anything? Can you maybe start talking with a nicer tone instead of being like, oh my God, you should have got that done? Can you say, it's okay, we'll add it to the list and we'll take care of it tomorrow? Can you show up with a little bit more compassion? Can you honor the commitments to yourself? Can you say like, hey, I'm actually really tired and I don't have the capacity to do this? Like, can you be honest? Right? If you want to learn how to build true self confidence in yourself, you got to follow through on these 10 things. And wherever you would make the adjustments to improve the relationship with your new boyfriend or girlfriend, make those adjustments with yourself. Okay? Show up with honesty, show up with transparency, show up when you say you're going to show up. Like, this is how you build self trust. Okay? And so going back to what I said at the beginning, when people come to me and they have this feel like they need to make this big decision in their life, and I say we want to make it from a um empowered state versus a fearful state, this is what I mean. Because when you reconnect with yourself, when you fix that list we just talked about, and you generate a really healthy relationship with yourself and you understand what that dynamic is, then that confidence starts to come back. Then you don't need people's opinions as much. Then you don't feel like you're constantly looking for an answer through a book or a podcast or whatever the case is. Now it's an inner knowing. Now it's a, you know what, whatever I do choose, I know I'm going to figure it out. There's less pressure to make the right decision. There's more of a, I'm going to make this choice and I know that whatever happens from this, I will find my way through it. That's true self-trust. That's true faith in yourself. That's true belief in yourself, okay? But if you're wondering why, like, hey, I can figure out these $1 million problems at work, but I can't even answer this one question in my personal life, that's why. Is you've become so disconnected from you and your soul and your heart and what actually makes you tick that you don't trust yourself anymore, right? And you need to earn that trust back. That part of you that doesn't trust you, that's that little kid version of you that's still alive in there, that at some point realized that you weren't going to show up for them anymore. You weren't going to feed them when they were hungry. You weren't going to let them sleep when they were tired. You weren't going to play with them. You weren't going to love them. You weren't going to hug them. You weren't when you started to shove that little kid within you aside, that's when the trust started to fall off. And so now when you go to make this big decision, that part of you that's so scared and can't get out of fear is that little kid version of you going, you sure we're going to do this? Because even on the basic stuff, you don't show up for me. Like you say, we're going to go, travel the world, or we're going to start a new business, or we're going to take a year off, or whatever it is. And it's going, well, you couldn't even let me get an extra hour of sleep. Or when I told you I was really tired, you signed up to take on another project. Like when I told you I wasn't happy doing this, you decided to do it anyways, right? And for the record, I know feelings are fleeting, okay? Like if we lived our entire life just based on feelings, that wouldn't be good either, okay? Because there's also commitment and discipline and devotion that are so pivotal to our success, okay? If you make a decision, you got to follow through. But there's a way you can do that without abandoning yourself or sacrificing your well-being in the process. Okay. Like there is a fine line where you can do that. So yes, if you take on a project, you just give up, oh, I don't feel like doing it anymore. No, but you go, how can I continue to build on this without sacrificing myself in the process, without, um, like dispelling my needs or ignoring my needs in the process, right? Like how can I do that? And you can. The problem is that most of us have done it the other way, where it's like you just put your head down and you work and you grind and you push through, but you sacrifice your needs and your well-being the entire time. Where one day you pop your head up and you don't even recognize yourself anymore, and you don't even have faith in yourself anymore, and you're questioning your judgment and you're questioning everything, because all you did was you sacrificed and sacrificed and sacrificed at the expense of who you are as a human being. Where yes, is there going to be sacrifice to maybe hit a goal? Yes, but it can't consistently come at expense of you. Can it every once in a while? Yeah. Do you have to push through every once in a while? Yeah. Are you going to have days where you're like, I don't want to fucking do this, but I got to show up anyways and make it happen? Yeah. But then on those days where you had to push through, there needs to be a replenishment. There needs to be some restoration. There needs to be a refuel so you can continue to show up the next day. Because if it's sacrifice and sacrifice and sacrifice, you're going to wake up and you're going to feel empty. And if you're questioning it, I guarantee that you feel a little bit of it, because that's why you're listening to this in the first place. Okay. So it's not an excuse to not be disciplined. It's not an excuse to just like now put your head through. It's about reconnecting with yourself so you know exactly what you need when you need it. Okay. I always quote one of my clients, Sean Mills. And when we first started working together, I said, what do you really want out of this? He's like, I want to understand myself so well so that when I need to kick it up or I need to perform, I know exactly what my body needs to make that happen. Okay. So he's a high performer, business owner, like he's done incredible things, entrepreneurial over and over and over again. And he just wants to know his machine to that degree so that he can let the machine run as long as possible. The whole point of grinding it out and achieving success is so that we sustain the success. No one wants to be a one-hit wonder. No one wants to have like a couple years of make and bank and then you lose it all. Like, no, the point of it is to do it and sustain it to be long term. But again, if it comes at the expense of you, that will not happen. You'll either get there and be miserable because you've completely lost connection with yourself in the process, or you could do it this way where you can sustain the long-term journey. Work is always going to be there. People expecting things out of you is always going to be there. That's not going to go away. So this is your opportunity to continue to show up in a way where you're not losing yourself in the process. And in a way where you can still be confident and you can still trust yourself and you can feel sound in the decisions you make. I'll be honest, it took me a long time to get to this point, but now when I have a big decision, I try to consult as little people as possible. And that wasn't me in the past. Me in the past was I'm constantly working on myself. I constantly need to seek counsel, whether it be a practitioner or a mentor or a friend or a parent. And I try and get all these opinions to try and help make sense of what I feel inside. Usually it was because I wanted them to give me the answer I really wanted and hope that all of a sudden the fear would go away. That doesn't work. Okay. But now I've gotten to a point where I've done so much work on reconnecting with myself. And this is what I teach my clients in my program. So, shameless plug. If you're dealing with burnout, if you're dealing with disconnect or just kind of like on a midlife crisis type place, hit me up. It'll be in the show notes. But I'm at a point now where when I'm going to make a big decision, I literally try to consult with as little people as possible because I don't want their projections on top of me. I might consult one or two people who I really trust in that arena, and I know that they've either done it, they've been there, or they know that I know they're going to breathe life into me, into how I can make it work. And if there's really something wrong, they might highlight it. But, I just want to trust in the decisions I make. I want to make decisions knowing that Minh-Thu made them. I wasn't influenced by a bunch of other people because I was so willy-nilly and disconnected from myself that I didn't have the confidence to make the decision myself. Right. And that's even like when I left my last career. It took me a year. Like I made the decision on January 1st and I didn't give my notice till March of the following year. or I gave them notice January the following year. So it took me a whole year to do it, but I made that decision for me. And did it take me a little longer? Yeah, and that's okay. But I made that decision from an empowered state so that by the time I gave my notice, there was nothing they could say or do to sway me. And they did a lot. They threw some things at me, guys, some attractive things. But I had already come to that conclusion in my mind that this is the decision I'm making. I'm confident in it. And for the record, I had no idea what I was going to do next. Like, I just knew what I was doing wasn't working and I wanted to take a year off, but I didn't know I was going to start this business. I didn't know I was going to get into the coaching space. Like, I had no plan. I just knew I wanted time for me. And if that meant leaving that behind so I could fully embrace in that experience, I was willing to do it. And it was the best decision I've ever made, because it was scary and it was risky, but it paid off because it taught me so much about myself, because I made the decision that that no matter what happens when I make this choice, I'm going to make it work. That was the self-belief and the confidence I needed in myself. I was going to show up for myself regardless of what got thrown my way. This is the choice I'm making for Minh-Thu and I'm sticking to it. Okay. But I was able to do that because I worked on the things in the questionnaire. I was showing up for myself. I was checking in with myself. I wasn't letting myself down the way I used to in the past. Like, I was building a relationship of genuine foundation and trust within me. So if you're at this place, you're like, I need my confidence back. I have a big decision to make. Remember, don't make it from fear, make it from an empowered place. And if you're not in the empowered place yet, then go through these steps till you get there. Okay. I always say, don't make decisions from the valley, make it from the mountaintop. Okay. And the mountaintop doesn't mean like you've won the game. The mountaintop simply means that you can see full picture. When you're dysregulated, when you're in burnout, when you're stressed or you're angry or fed up with the situation, you're in the valley. Okay. So think about being between two mountains and there's a valley between the two, and you're walking and it's almost like your head is level with the ground of the mountains. Okay. Like you're in a ditch. And so, okay, so I can see the ditch in front of me. I can see these massive mountains beside me. I can maybe see the trail in front of me. I can see the grass, but that's like all I can see. Whereas if I wait till I hike to the top of that mountain, which in this case means just regulating your nervous system, getting out of survival mode, managing your stress better so you can feel like yourself again and you're not in this fight or flight all the time. Okay, you're in a more balanced state. When you hike to the top of the mountain, now you can see full picture. I can see the valley that I was just in. I can see the river to my right. I can see another mountain to my left. I can see a big pasture over there. I can see a waterfall. I can see a field. I can see some cows. You can see full picture. And guess what? Now you can make the best choice for yourself on what path to take because you can see big picture. Think about how more confident you'll be in navigating where you're going to go next because you actually waited till you got to the top, till you got out of that valley, that gray, that heavy, that fear. Once you get out of that and you get to where you can breathe and you can take a moment and you don't have to rush to make that decision, and you can sit on the mountaintop and you can take in your scenery and you can take in your surroundings and you can see, what path do I want to take? Now that I can see big picture, now that I can see everything in front of me, what's the best decision for me, for my loved ones, for my family? What's going to bring me into alignment with what I truly want out of life? This is where you want to make that decision from. Okay. And again, if you're not there, if you know you've been questioning yourself so much, go back to the questionnaire and think, how can I improve the relationship that I have with this person? And that person being you.